Hello, fellow YouTubers and movie buffs. This is DVD Collector 1986 here with a new video for you. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Rambo Last Blood. I'm going to try to do it in such a way that I don't want to give anything away, at least none of the really big plot points. So I'm going to try to be like non-spoiler-ish with this. Um, so let's get into this. Um, this is the fifth film, and if you're familiar with these films, in the previous film, Stallone or Rambo was in Burma. That's where he was fighting the Burmese army. A very, very visceral, raw, brutal, in your face movie. And a lot of people said it was over the top, it was ridiculous. No, actually, Rambo Part 4 was very realistic. It is. And the original writer of the everybody that knows anything about this franchise knows that the character of Rambo started out in a book called First Blood, written by an author named, I believe his name was, I want to say David Morrell. Yeah, David Morrell. And David Morrell actually said in an interview that the Rambo in Rambo Part 4, the one that takes place in Burma, and the Rambo in this movie tonally is most like the Rambo that he was trying to portray in his book. So don't listen to the people that have hated on this movie and the one before it, because obviously they don't know the source material, they don't know the book, and just don't listen to them. I never listen to critics anyway. I watch movies for myself and decide for myself if I like it. And I'm a Stallone fan, and I love a good throwback 80s action flick. So that being said, this movie picks up about 10 years after Rambo Part 4. Rambo is now 72 years old. Let me say that again to put this movie into, because I'm going to talk about this later in the review as I get into it, but this is a very relevant point I need to make right up front. Rambo is 72 years old, and so is Stallone, the actor. Okay? So bear that in mind. Okay, so he's much older now than he ever has been before this point, and he has returned home. He's been living at home for 10 years in his farm, or at his farm, which is in Arizona. And his parents have, since the ending of the fourth film, if you see the end of the fourth film, he's walking up the road past his mailbox that has the name Rambo on it, the family name, and you see him walking up to the farm, and then it goes to credits and the movie ends. And so this movie picks up right where the other one left off, except it's 10 years later. And unfortunately, his parents have passed away. So we never get to see Rambo's mother or father. So, but he's living at this farm. He's now a horse trainer and a rancher, and he's trying to bury his inner demons his his wartime experiences, all the psychological and emotional damage that he has accumulated over the last four films. He's trying to make sense of it all, and he's trying to live as normal a life as he possibly can. And he has this family that he's sort of, they're more like a surrogate family. The girl's name is Gabrielle, I think, and she's about 18 or 19. I can't remember. But she's a teenager, and she's about to go off to college. And her grandmother also lives on the farm there, and Rambo lives there, obviously. So he's kind of adopted this surrogate family, and he's gotten really close to them. They've gotten really close to him. And one day, Gabrielle approaches Rambo and tells him, I really want to go find my biological father, meet him, and see what kind of person he is. Well, he lives in Mexico. And so she, even though Rambo tells her, your dad's not a good guy, and he isn't. The real father, he's not a good guy. That's all I'm going to say. But Rambo tells her, I wouldn't go looking for him. You might get into some trouble. He's not worth it, etc. Well, in typical teenage fashion, she goes looking for him anyway. So she drives into Mexico, and she gets in trouble. I'm not going to say what happens because, like I said, I'm going to try to not give away too much. But this is a Rambo movie, so something happens. She gets into some trouble, and it involves cartels and stuff like that. So she basically goes missing, and they don't know what happened to her and all that kind of stuff. So Rambo decides he's going to go to Mexico and find her. Well, he goes to Mexico, and he kind of tracks down the guys who basically took her. And this is the only thing I'll give away, and that's because it happens really early in the movie. They basically beat the tar out of him. This is something that we're not used to seeing in a Rambo film. In previous Rambo movies, this would never have happened. But this is the most realistic, most grounded take on Rambo that I've ever seen. So they jump him, they beat him up really bad. But the mistake that they make is they do not kill him. So he gets away. How he gets away, I'm not going to say. You have to watch the movie. But he gets away. And after about 4 days, he heals up enough that he wants revenge, basically. And some really sad, gut wrenching stuff happens in this movie. And when it gets to the point where Rambo wants revenge on the bad guys, you feel for him. You really, like I said, I don't want to give it away, but you'll have to watch the movie. It's a different kind of Rambo than we've ever seen before. And he basically tells another character in the movie, I want revenge. I want to get these guys. So this person, who I'm not going to say who, gives him some information, and he goes back to the bad guys' place where they live, kills a few of the bad guys to sort of stir things up, to rattle a few cages, if you will, to provoke the bad guys. But the cool thing is that before he does this, he after he's healed up, he goes back to his farm and he sets up all these different booby traps and just you know booby traps. Um, and everybody said, "Oh, people that hated on this movie were like, oh, it was so unrealistic, over the top. How could a 72-year-old guy do all this stuff?" Well, Rambo was a Green Beret, and all of the skills that he learned from being in the army, and all the stuff that he learned, combat tactics, how to take out bad guys, all the stuff he learned from his Vietnam experiences, he takes all those skills and puts them to use to get back at the bad guys in this movie. He makes, I think he makes this one spring-loaded booby trap that's got like it's a log, but it has wooden spikes on it that he actually carved out the wooden spikes himself. This is all classic Vietnam War booby trap stuff. Anyway, he booby traps his farm, and the one thing I'll say too is, which I didn't mention earlier, was he's been at home for 10 years, remember? So he has, for the last 10 years, he's been digging out these tunnels, this network of tunnels underneath his farm. Uh, when I saw it, in the movie, I immediately thought of the Friday the 13th remake from 2009. Some people didn't like the fact that Jason wasn't supernatural in that movie, and I thought, well, if he's not supernatural, how does he get from one place to another so quickly? And that's because at Crystal Lake there was a network of underground tunnels and these hatches in different places, and that's how Jason would move from one place to the other so quickly. Well, it's a similar concept here. And so between all the booby traps and this network of underground tunnels, that's how Rambo decides he's going to take on these bad guys. Now, the problem is, he went over there, like I said, and he provoked the bad guys, killed a few of them, and so now they come after him. And the thing was, when they beat him up earlier in the movie, they stole his driver's license. So they know his name and they know exactly where he lives. So you see where this is going. So he goes back home. His traps and everything's already set. So he's just waiting for them. And they show up. And I'm not kidding. He kills like 40 guys in the span of, I think, 20 minutes. Yeah, something like that. So it's brutal. And he, like I said, he uses booby traps, and he basically lures them down into that tunnel system under his farm. And not only does he have all these booby traps set up, he also has a bunch of different guns, rifles, handguns, shotguns, etc. And he has all these weapons in addition to his booby traps. He has all these weapons stashed at strategic spots in the tunnels, and basically is luring them deeper and deeper into the tunnel system. And he takes them out one by one by one. And it's realistic. I mean, everyone, you might think for a second, well, that's really unrealistic. One guy against 40 bad guys. How could that realistically go where, they wouldn't get him, or like how could he survive that, or, but you have to understand, this guy's a Green Beret. Realistically, Green Berets are trained to go into places not when they're 72, but when they're in their prime, when they're young. They're trained to go into places, and they can, instead of the army sending like 30 guys to do a mission, Green Beret teams I think have like 12 guys on them, and these 12 guys can do the same thing that 60 guys can do. I mean, that's how well trained they are. So you got to figure he never forgot his Green Beret training. So he uses his skills to take out all these bad guys. And like I said, he kills about 40 guys in the span of 20 minutes. And uh, like I said, it's brutal. It's not as bloody as the fourth movie, but it's just as brutal and visceral, but in a slightly different manner. And everyone that complained, "Oh, this movie is unrealistic," well, he's 72 years old. So think about it this way: he still knows everything he learned from the military and his time in Vietnam, but Rambo himself knows, I'm 72 years old. I can't just run in there and take all these guys on at once and expect to live because I'm older. He's slower and he knows it. And realistically, how would a 72-year-old Green Beret take on this many guys in a realistic fashion? And they executed that perfectly. And the last part of the movie, uh, which I'm not going to tell you how it ends, but I will say this: the last 20 minutes of this movie are nothing but a prolonged action sequence. One of the coolest Rambo movies I've ever seen. Very entertaining, and it's Stallone, man. And don't be saying, I've heard people say, well, isn't he getting kind of old for this? Well, I'd like to see you make an action movie when you're 72 and see how well you do it. I love Stallone. He's one of the last remaining action stars from the 80s. Of course, there's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I've always preferred Stallone over them all. But anyway, Stallone has still got it. He still knows how to make a really good action movie. They're entertaining as all get out, and really, really fun movie. Very brutal, but again, it's an 80s throwback action movie, and I loved every minute of it. And although I do believe that this is a satisfying last chapter, uh, Stallone has hinted that there is a possibility that this franchise could still go on in a certain manner of speaking. He wasn't very specific about it, so he might decide to do sequels later on. Who knows? But even if he doesn't, I'm happy with this ending of the series. I respect Stallone majorly, and I applaud him for still being able to get out there and make these kinds of action movies. And you know, I'm not just saying this because I'm a Rambo fan. I'm not just saying this because you know, because this is the newest movie. But don't listen to all the hate. This movie has been hated on by everyone and everything, and I just don't understand it. Um, but my final rating, um, is it the best Rambo movie out of the whole bunch? No, but it's pretty close. Um, I would rate this, for me, a strong 9 out of 10. Seriously. Uh, this is a great movie. It's a great action movie. And remember, the whole time you're watching this movie, this is a 72-year-old man that's still able to do these kind of action movies. Respect that. And I think you'll have a good time with this movie. So, anyway, that is my review for Rambo Last Blood. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.